Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hannah Gonzaga, and I am the Internal Vice President of HKUST Student Art Club. I am a third-year business student, and this afternoon, it is my pleasure to serve as your Master of Ceremonies.
大家好，我係梁中博，係今年科技學小學會嘅主席，我係今日嘅司儀。
Our special guest speaker this afternoon is Dr. Tim Van Lee, an extraordinary man whose passion for nature and art has brought us closer to understanding our natural world. Awarded the grand prize in 2013 Nature's Best Photography Wyndham Smith Prize International Awards out of 25,000 entries from 50 different countries, Dr. Lee has had his award-winning photo exhibited at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. He has had this photo displayed at another special exhibition in October 2015. This is an accomplishment most other photographers could only dream about in a lifetime. Raised and educated in Hong Kong, Dr. Tim Van Lee was awarded a full scholarship to the University of California in Los Angeles after attaining 10 A's in HKCEE. Dr. Lee now resides in the U.S. and is managing an imaging center for a leading global pharmaceutical company. With his deep love for and curiosity for wildlife, he combines his professionalism and his creativity to produce artistically moving photos which have never been seen before. He has won numerous awards, including the Top 10 Award from the North American Nature Photography Association, and his photo, Fish and Bear Cub, was featured on the contest magazine Expressions. This photo was the first ever photograph in the contest history to win a full score from all of its judges. So in commemoration of HKUST's 25th anniversary, we proudly invite Dr. Tim Van Lee to the stage to share with us his experiences in academia, career, and photography.
今晚我哋好榮幸邀請到華人前攝影師李天文博士為你今晚嘅講者。李博士係一個土生土長香港人，於會考考獲10優之後，得到全額獎學金，攻讀加州大學洛杉磯分大學，並於美國落地生根。2013年，李博士從來自50個國家嘅25,500參賽作品中脱穎而出，榮獲 Women's Prize 國際最佳自然攝影大獎。其作品《晚撲的熊》更贏得北美自然攝影協會10佳作品之一，及更被選作北美自然攝影協會雜誌封面。另外，李博士獲獎無數，其作品曾多次於雜誌中發表。現在我哋有請李博士為我哋分享一下佢嘅人生經驗。
I'm very honored to be here today, and I always start my talk by asking a question. So, how many of you here, if you can give me a show of hands, love to take pictures? Oh, okay, almost all of you. And how many of you own a digital SLR, Canon, Nikon, Sony, those big cameras here? Okay, fewer people. How about this question? So how many of you have seen a grizzly bear in the wild? Okay, one. And how about polar bear? How many of you have seen a polar bear in the wild? Okay, none. Well, yesterday there was one. So one final question. How many of you wish to see a polar bear in the wild one day in the future? Okay, well, that's fantastic. So you have come to the right talk. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about myself. So I saw many secondary school students today, and I'm very thankful that you come here. I went to my secondary school many years ago, and at that time, God, it was like 20 years ago now. And so I went to the U.S. After Form 6. So during my secondary school year, like most of you, I was very busy studying, exams, homework, and all kind of thing. And I also listen to pop music, read comic books, and one of the things that I love, I don't know how many of you like the 金庸小說, 金庸武俠小說. Yeah, many of them. So I love that too, and I'm going to actually talk a little bit about that too today. Because when I read about those books and I see they talk about eagles flying, humans riding on them and all, and it actually helped my photography. So about 6 years ago, after I finished my PhD at UCLA, and I went to work at a biotech company in Thousand Oaks. And I started my little hobby, photography hobby. And I told myself that, what did I want to do? What makes me really happy? And this is actually one big question that I hope I knew long time ago. Especially for people in Hong Kong, we all go to school. And I don't know now, but when I was in Form 3, we have to pick our choice. Do you want to go to science, or do you want to go to art? And then most of the students would choose science, and then some of the students will choose art, I guess. And then you apply for school, and I clearly remember that when I finished my HKCEE, and some of the students started to apply for university. And what do you apply? And at that time, I applied electrical engineering. And do you guys know why? The main reason was that the classmate sitting next to me chose that. Because I have no idea what electrical engineering was. And I said, okay, this sounds cool, because you never study those. You study physics, chemistry, and you had no idea. So by randomly picking a major, I left my parents and I flew by myself to the US and started my journey there without knowing anything about electrical engineering, without anything about the future. And then I spent 20 years in the US. And the experience was crazy, because you never really ask yourself, why are you doing what you are doing? And I think this is one thing that you all have to sometimes ask yourself. Instead of following all what people expect from you, you have to think about what excites you, what really makes you happy. And when I was a kid, I loved to watch Discovery channels. And I kept replaying a video from the Discovery Channel about a bird. And the bird's name is peregrine falcon. And at that time, I thought, wow, this bird is really amazing, majestic. So it is the fastest flying bird in the world. And I kept watching it. They were showing the bird in a remote place, like Timbuktu, maybe in another world. There's a cliff. And then they show the peregrine falcon took off and fly. And I thought, wow, if one day I could see a peregrine falcon, that would be awesome. And then I went to school, and then I went to work. And with the next 20 years, I completely forgot about it. Until one day, I heard that, well, actually there is peregrine falcon near where you live. And at that time, I lived in Los Angeles, in the middle of the city. And can you believe that? So one of my friends told me that there seems to be a peregrine falcon near the beach where you live. So I went there. And as I walked slowly, and that day it was really foggy. And I said, oh God, I shouldn't even started going out today, because when it's foggy, you cannot even see what you are seeing, right? And as I was walking along the beach, suddenly the fog cleared out. And then this is what I saw. So this is a very beautiful bird, and it was right on the ground. And I had a chance when I see her face to face, and that is a very special moment when the wild animal accept your presence, and they trust you, and then you just very relaxed, and then she was looking for food. And then I said, okay, now I got a picture of the peregrine falcon sitting on the sand. And I become greedy. I said, now I want a picture of it flying. And I remember when I was a kid, I read these Jin Yong stories, and they all have the characters riding on the back of the bird, flying on that. And I said, now I want a picture of a bird flying, but I want the picture to look like I was actually above the bird, shooting down. And how can it be possible? Right? So turn out there is a special place near Los Angeles. And how do I shoot it? So the bird had a nest on the cliff. And as long as you walk to the cliff and then walk to the edge of the cliff and look down, from time to time, the peregrine falcon will fly by. So it was really dangerous, actually, because it was wet, the place was slippery, and my legs were shaking when I looked down, because you might actually fall down because it was really windy. But by waiting there all the time, every weekend, finally I got a shot of the peregrine falcon flying towards me. And this is a young peregrine falcon. So while he was flying, he was hungry, and he kept calling his parents because he wanted food. So this is how I shot from above, and then I got my dream realized. So I want to tell you that one thing that you have to remember is don't forget your childhood dream. So I got my childhood dream fulfilled, and by practicing, so this is actually a method called birds in flight photography, and it is a very challenging thing. You have to really have a long lens, and then when the birds fly by, you have to capture them within a short period of time. And after the peregrine falcon, I said, okay, I was really amazed by another species of bird, which is the snail kite, and they are endangered species in Florida. And what I heard is that this special bird actually pick snails, and then they eat the snails. And I said, how fascinating is it that the bird would actually eat snail? So I went to Florida, and then I took a boat, and then we ride out, and then we saw this is the snail kite. So they actually pick, this is called a apple snail, so it's a gigantic snail. So one thing that I want to tell you is that through practicing these birds in flight, you actually got yourself prepared to capture any of the fast action. When you can capture fast action, that means you can capture anything, because nothing is really faster than a flying bird. So after that, you started to try to get creative, and then you can capture something like, so this is a common loon, and I got the picture in Michigan. And if you see that, you see a very special moment in nature that this is the mother loons, and what they do is they have a special made lung that they can actually sink themselves into the water when they try to feed the young, so that the young didn't need to raise their head to catch the fish. So they actually sink completely under the water except the tail. And before they feed the babies with the fish, they actually will crunch the fish so that all the bones was broken, so that the baby would not choke on the bird. And as you can see, that the mother actually knew that by only eating protein is not enough, so it actually adds some salad for them. So another story I want to tell you is about how to be persistent in photography, and this can be applied in life as well. So I went to northern Minnesota because I want to capture black bears. And at that time, there were a lot of baby black bears too, and then also so this is one of the picture that so the black bear would climb on the tree, and I don't know why he is giving me this face when I try to photograph him. So in that trip, I want to capture a black bear. So what we were told is that they said there is a big black bear that like to drink water on this river from time to time every evening, and so me and another friend and our bear guy. So I always hire a bear guy when I go to these places, because they know how to protect us. You don't want to really go by yourself to see the bears. So he said, well, if you wait in the evening, sometimes the black bear may come and drink water. And I said, okay, I want a picture of the black bear drinking water. So the first evening, so I planned to stay there for 3 days. So the first evening, we waited near the river. We were all hiding behind a bush, and we heard something from the bush. And then we saw a glimpse of the black bear. Once he saw it, he immediately went off. And I said, oh God, we missed the opportunity. So the second day, second evening, we went back again at the same place. And this time, the black bear appeared again. But this time he came a little bit close, looked at us, and I said, please come closer, this is the water. And he didn't listen to us, and he left again. So the last evening, so this is about photography, about life and everything too, is you knew that this is the last chance. So we waited there, this time very quietly, and this time the black bear finally came out. And we said, okay, so we saw that the black bear dipped his head into the water and drink it. And the bear guy said that this is very magical because black bear, very skittish. They never got close to the water unless he's very comfortable. So we captured a few shots, and we thought, this is it, this is wonderful. And then the black bear looked at us, and suddenly he kept walking, and then he jumped into the water. And said, wow, the bear guy said, this has never happened before because black bear doesn't like water. So it turned out that the weather has been so hot, so the black bear decided to take a bath. So as we were waiting there, I wanted to capture a shot where the black bear is mysterious, you know. I want to capture a shot when the last ray of light was shining onto it. So the black bear was playing in the water as the sun was setting. And in the last moment, when the light is slowly disappearing and the last spot of light shine on the head of the black bear, the river all turned completely dark. And then the reflection of the black bear suddenly show up in the, so this is the black bear that we were talking about, that he showed up and then he started to drink water. But as he was playing in the water, finally when the sun was disappearing, we saw a reflection on the water. And this is the shot. So this is you can see the reflection down there, and it was quite haunting. And one of my friends actually told me that this face reminded her of a friend. So this is my black bear story that I want to tell you is you just have to keep going and don't give up on your dream. Sometimes it may happen in the last moment, sometimes it can happen anytime, but if you have your plan, sometimes the nature rewards you with something much bigger. So the next story is about a species called the dog sheep. And what is the dog sheep? Anybody know what is a dog sheep here? Okay, so this is a bighorn sheep. So the bighorn sheep is beautiful, and I like them. They have a very big curly horn here. And the dog sheep is kind of the same species, but they live in Alaska, and they are completely white because they live in the snow. So it's a very beautiful species. And I have always been dreaming to photograph them. And so one year I invited my parents, and we spent 3 days in Alaska trying to photograph the dog sheep. And in order to photograph them, the place to go is called Denali National Park in Alaska. And what you do is you take a shuttle, and the shuttle will drive you around the park for 13 hours each day. And then I thought, okay, if you go for 13 hours, you're bound to get to see some dog sheep, right? So it turned out the first day we went for 13 hours, and it was raining nonstop, and it was completely dark. And so basically we were sitting in a really uncomfortable shuttle for 13 hours. And my parents started to blame me, and they said that, is it time to go to another place? And I said, well, I booked another 2 days here. So the second day, it was raining again, nothing happened. And so the third day, the rain stopped, and there was a rainbow. And so I said, hey, since we haven't seen any wildlife in the last 2 days, why don't you come out and I'll take a picture for you, Dad? So he came out, and it's beautiful. You know, this is the beautiful Alaska landscape. And then I was taking a picture for him using my iPhone, so instead of the big lenses. And then after that, we keep driving, and we saw something on top of this cliff. And this is the dog sheep. And I was thinking, oh, wow, this is amazing. I finally got the shot. And I asked the driver, can you get closer so that I can get a bigger picture? And then the driver said, okay. So we got closer, and we finally got a really close-up shot of this dog sheep. And I thought, okay, my dream is fulfilled. This is the picture that I really, really want. And then something happened to me. And I remember something that we just saw the rainbow a few minutes ago. And now there is a dog sheep here. So what is the connection here? And I kept thinking, and suddenly I remember that a few years ago, I went to a place in California. There is a gallery in California by a legendary photographer. His name is Galen Rowell. And he one time he went to Tibet and he saw the Potala Palace. And then he also saw a rainbow. The problem is that the rainbow was on left side, the Potala Palace was on the right side. So what did he do? So in Tibet, it's 25,000 feet high. So you know high altitude sickness. People, after you walk a few steps, you already cannot even breathe, right? But this photographer risked his life. Within a few minutes, he ran for a mile or two to get to a place where the Potala Palace was parallel to the rainbow. And then he got a shot, and it became one of the most famous photos of the world. And then I said, if this guy can do it, I can do it too. So let me do a doorship in front of the rainbow. So I begged the driver, and the driver at first said she would not allow any people to get off the bus because it is full of bears and all this. But I said, we never even seen a bear in the last few days. Let me get down to the ground. And once I got to the driver allowed me to do that. And I sprinted half a mile along the cliff so that the rainbow is way behind the doorship. And I finally got a picture like that. And what I want to tell you is sometimes opportunities, you have to create your own opportunity. Even when things happen, if you can find the connection and you can go for it and using all the resources, you can create something that nobody has even imagined. So my dream of capturing the doorship becomes much more because I even got a rainbow in front of it. So, back in May, I went to Yellowstone National Park, and I was photographing a species called the great gray owl, which I'm not going to show you today. So I went with 3 friends. So what we did is we had to hike in this kind of forest for miles to look for the owls. And since I went with a bunch of friends, and then they all have bear spray, and because Yellowstone is full of bears. And in this kind of environment with trees and all, you cannot see any bears near you. So if you surprise a bear, they will instantly attack you. And actually, there was a recent attack a few weeks ago that a guy was killed and eaten by a bear in Yellowstone, near that area. So that day, I went with a few friends. And as the time went by, I said, okay, I need to catch a flight back to Los Angeles. Can you guys went back with me to get to my car because it was a few miles away? And they said, no, we're going to stay. And I said, but then I don't want to go alone in this kind of place, right? And they said, sorry. So I said, okay, all right, so I will just go by myself. So I walk pretty quickly. I have my bear spray in my hand. I just get ready to do anything if the bear comes out. So I was walking, and guess what? I got lost. So I keep walking, and the place looks the same. And then I panicked because just imagine you were alone there. There was no phone signals. If you get attacked, nobody is going to help you. So I started to yell out, hey, bears. Hey, I'm good. Hey, bears. And people thought I would be crazy, but luckily there were nobody here. Because you want to surprise the bear so that they knew you were there from far away. And if the bear knew that you were here, they actually would not attack you. They would get away. So you have to yell out, and then I kept looking back over my shoulder, and it was just crazy. I kept walking, and finally I got back to my car, and I was safe. And those moments are crazy, right? Like why, when we can stay home, watch some TVs, drink some latte, drink some coffee, or read some magazines? Why do I work my life to go to those places? And the main reason is because I really love the wild animals there. And one of the wild animals that I love most is grizzly bear or brown bear. And if you have seen a bear cub, you know what I mean. So this is a brown bear cub, very small. It's like the size of a football. And they were just So I went to Alaska, and this is the picture of the mother bear with the 2 cubs, and they were all play. So what this bear is doing is because when she saw some other intruding bears, she got nervous, and then she stand up, and then the other 2 cubs seeing the mother stood up, they stood up as well to follow the mother. So So this is another picture of the cubs. So the mother was looking at them and they suddenly stood up, and those are the moments that I really want. So I kept photographing this sweet bear family for quite a few hours in that trip. And so sometimes they will even do nursing of the babies, and it's just extremely sweet. So I photographed them and I started to have a bonding with them. I just feel that they are so sweet. So 1 year later, I took another trip to Alaska. So, so this time, I also wanted to see some bears. And suddenly, I saw a bear that was really shy, and he was hiding. So this is a yearling cub. So what it means is that it is about 2 years old, and he was very skittish. The way he looks at me is that he's so scared. And I was wondering what really happened. And of course, his mother was near him. So I saw that they have a very close bonding. And I can just feel that there is a strong love between them that I have never seen in other kind of animals. So what they would do is they would just look at each other like that, and then they would try to play with the mother. When the mother opened the mouth, and he will open it as well. And sometimes he want to kiss the mother, and the mother would raise the hand so that he couldn't kiss her. And then they would just hug and play. And then all of a sudden, they gave me this shot, and I don't know if you can feel that. The mother seems to be a little bit sad. And so I asked the bear guy, and I said, what happened? How come the mother seems to be sad? And then he said, well, actually this mother just lost one of the 2 cubs recently. And so that's why they were so close, because the mother didn't want to lose another cub. So I said, wow, this is really sad. How come he died? And then he said, well, in the wilderness, it is very tough. Wolves can eat them, or they can be eaten by other bears. So it is just a jungle out there. And as I look at this picture, I said, this mother bear just looked a little bit familiar. And then he said, you're right. So it turned out that the family that I photographed a year ago was the same family of this bear. So sometimes in nature, it can give you this kind of surprise. It's like you become family with them. You just follow them, their life, and then you see their struggle, and it just gives you a lot of meaning to photograph them. So there's another chance that I wanted to photograph wolves in Yellowstone. So we saw the wolves, and it was pretty amazing. He was eating a carcass. So at that time, we were on the edge of a river, and we were photographing the wolves, and then so we were lining up, like, photographers are crazy. So we lined up along the cliff, and then we were shooting downwards because the wolf was near a river, right? So we were lining up like that, and then we were all shooting down with our big lenses. And then suddenly somebody yelled, bison. And then we thought, oh, there was a bison, but I don't want to photograph the bison because this is a wolf, right? So we kept photographing the wolf. And then after a while, another people yelled, bison! So, and then we still don't care, because at that time, wolves are much more elusive and difficult to photograph than the bison, right? And then I kept photographing it, and suddenly I heard some thunder on the ground, as if it was roaring. And I turned my head, and then I saw that a bison was charging at us. So by then, I already see that the bison was this big, and I see that, so there were at least 5 photographers to my left, and then the bison was rushing towards us. And I see that all the photographers, just like a fan, they just slowly grab the camera very quickly and get down, and then the guy in front of me actually jumped down the cliff. I don't know if he survived. But then so I barely grabbed my camera, and then I stepped back, and then I saw the bison just ran right across me, and then he was chasing another girl, and the girl kept on running, and I saw that it was like a slow motion. The girl with long hair, her hair was floating in the air, and then the bison was chasing her. And then finally, the girl fell down in the snow, and the bison was running towards her and stopped about a few inches in front of her and breathed into her. And at that time, everybody were frozen. And we didn't know what to do. And the girl was completely frozen too. And then the bison turned around and looked at us. And then he was stepping and stepping. And we felt so helpless in front of that situation because at that time, nobody were there to protect us. The bison could charge at anybody. So we looked at the bison, and then he was just like rotating his body and then see like which one didn't look good, and he would just charge at them. And I just used my fingers to close my eyes. And at the end, the bison finally relaxed, and then he slowly walked away. And by then, there was a gentleman who appeared to be the girl's boyfriend, walked to her and said, "Are you okay?" And I don't, and he probably is the ex-boyfriend now. So now is the story about the polar bear. So right now, when I do photography, I started to realize that the wilderness is disappearing. You all know about the global warming. You all know about the disappearing sea ice. So to photograph polar bears is becoming more and more difficult. And to see them, I went to the Alaskan Arctic 1 year. So what you have to do is you have to fly to Fairbanks in Alaska, and then you have to drive 2 days all the way to the north through the Arctic Circle, and then you have to take a flight to a small town, and then you have to take the boat ride. So along the way, we actually see some very interesting animal, like this is the muskox babies, and the muskox is a prehistoric animal. So by doing wildlife photography, you can actually see something that is very elusive, very ancient, and when you see them, you just have this kind of fulfillment. So finally, we arrive at our destination. And this is one story that I want to tell you to also, you can relate to life. So when you work really hard on something like you fly to the Arctic, you drive 2 days, and then you finally got to a place. And we planned to spend 4 days to photograph the polar bear. And when we arrived, it was already 5 p.m., so about this time. And you know, the sky is getting dark, and sunset is going to happen in a few minutes. And you talk to yourself, do you still want to go out to look for the polar bears, or do you want to just stay in the hotel? And some of the people got really tired, and they decided to stay. And I said, even if there is half an hour, I still want to go. So I don't want any opportunity to slide away from me. So I talked to the captain of the boat, and then we started to run out. And the captain told me his name is Jack, and he said, "Hey, I can guarantee you, but you have to pay me a few $1,000s to bring you out. But I cannot guarantee that you'll see a polar bear." And I said, "Okay, I'll give you the money. Just go." So we keep on looking for the polar bear in the Arctic Ocean. And as the sun is getting lower and lower, the light is getting dimmer and dimmer, we didn't see a polar bear. And I said, "Oh, okay, so all these few $1,000s are going to the waste. We have nothing, but it is okay, at least we tried, right?" So as we were on our way back, we suddenly see something on the ground. And I said, "Jack, what is that?" Jack said, "Looks like there is a polar bear and her cub." And I said, "Wow, this is amazing. Even polar bear sleeping is better than nothing, right?" So I kept on photographing them nonstop for 15 minutes. And then I said, "Okay, I remember one have to create opportunity for yourself. You don't just sit there to wait." So I said, "Well, I see that if you move the boat a little bit to your left, the background will be a little bit more beautiful. Can you move the boat like that?" And Jack said, "Well, okay, whatever you want." So he moved the boat a little bit to the left. And then one of the cubs looked at us, and I said, "Oh, this is so sweet." So I said, "Well, can you move the boat just a little bit more?" Because I knew that when you move the boat to the left, the background will be the sunset golden light. And I said, even if there's nothing, the light is still going to be beautiful. So as the boat slowly moved, I got ready. I raised my 500 millimeter towards the bears, waiting for anything to happen. And this is what happened. So so turned out there is not only the polar bear mother and her cub, there is the second cub. And he thought that we could not see him, so he just peeked his eyes out. So we captured that moment just by creating the opportunity. This is one thing that I want to say. So after a while, they all went back to sleep, and I said, okay, this is it. We have a really good trip, and we're getting ready to leave. And as we were going to get away, so all three of them went back to sleep, and suddenly one of them opened the eyes and said, hold on a second, let's see what happened. And then this cub just sit up like a human, and this is what happened. So he just sit up, and then he just opened his mouth like, life is good. So, so this is the shot that becomes my favorite. And after we got back to the hotel, we talked to the people there, and they said that they have never seen something like that in the past 15 years. Because in the Arctic, it's always overcast, it's always dark. But this special moment, when you see the polar bears doing something interesting in a beautiful light, it is very rare. So think about it. If you never even go out on the boat in the first place, you would never even see the polar bear. But as you get the opportunity, and if you work harder onto it, you will create something that is so special. So this series of photos actually won a medal in the Global Arctic Award, and it was exhibited in Europe all over the place. And you get people to see this kind of picture, and this is good. So after the excited polar bear cub opened the mouth, he went back to sleep, and he just leaned on the mother's shoulder. So, so this is all these opportunities. You have to fight for it. And also, as I told you about, you also have to do a lot of research. So I want to now talk about how I got all started in this hobby. So when I want to photograph something like these polar bears or the grizzly bears and all this, it is almost like how you are doing your study. In order to be good at it, you have to do a lot of research, you have to read a lot of magazines and photo books and all. And for me, when I first started, I looked at a lot of the photos online. And then when I saw some photos that touched me deeply, I would try to dig deeper and see who really took those pictures. And I would see if they have a contact, I will contact that photographer and talk to them. And if they have some classes to teach me, I will take their classes. I'll just be obsessed. And when you see something, for example, in Hong Kong UST, there are a lot of outstanding professors. And if you there are some professors that you really admire, you go to their classes not only to learn what the syllabus is teaching you to do. Like when I go to see these famous photographers, and when I take their classes, I don't go to them to see what photographs, what animals they are taking. I will look at them. I will look at what they are thinking when they see an animal. I will see how they put themselves in different locations. I will see how they visualize certain pictures. And by learning their way of thinking, you learn much more than just trying to go to the same place and take the same picture again. And I encourage you guys to also try that, is to really learn from some master and then try to learn from their style. And then you don't need to start from scratch. You can start from what they are master at and then try to improve upon them, and it is much easier. So one year I went to Yellowstone National Park, and the main reason I want to go there is because I want to photograph red fox, because red fox in the snow is beautiful. And some people told me that in the winter it is really cold, minus 40 degrees. And but then because Yellowstone has a lot of hot geysers, hot springs and geysers, so the animals tend to stay at the warm place. So it is a lot easier to see the wild animals. So I said, this is a good deal. It must be very easy to see the wild animals that way. So I went and I spent a week there to try to look for the red fox. So what we do is we take this thing called the snow coach. It's a school bus being turned into a vehicle that can travel in the snow. And we saw a lot of the animals, but for example, like this picture is the Bighorn Sheep that I told you about, but then I never really see a red fox. And by the 6th day, which is the second last day, the snow coach was even broken down, and we lost the phone signals. We had no radio signals when we were stuck in the darkness for 5 hours. And then I said, okay, let's just finish this trip and get out, because we only have 1 day left and nothing is not going to happen. And then in the last day of the morning, we saw a red spot in the distance when we were driving out. And as we got closer, we finally see this. So this is a red fox in the snow. And as you can see, he was so curious, and he allowed us to get close, and he was looking at us. And what I realized is that if you can get eye contact from a wild animal, you always can connect with the viewer. So as the red fox was checking us out and walking around, he developed a new way of hunting, which is that instead of opening the eyes to look for the food, they would use their hearing to hear what the rodents or the mice was doing underneath the snow. And if they target on those mice, they would jump vertically and then pounce down using their nose to crack open the snow and then to catch the food. And this is something that really fascinated me because wild animals, we humans cannot even survive a day in those kind of weather, minus 40 degrees. But for animals, they develop their fur, they develop their style of living, and they can even survive with very limited resources. So I think there is a lot of things that we can learn from. And I'm very fascinated with bobcat. There's a lot of bobcats in California, but you can never see them because they live in they are nocturnal, so they are only active at night. So I drove around in California for so many years hoping to see a bobcat, and it never happened. Then one year, I finally heard that there is a bobcat in Yellowstone National Park. And I don't know if any of you can see the bobcat in this picture. And just imagine that this is using a long lens to find them. So if you are using your naked eye, you could almost never see them. And the bobcat will just walk around in the place, and you can see that it looks majestic, and sometimes you get close to the wood, and sometimes you would try to hunt, and then sometimes you would try to jump. But this is not what I was looking for. What I want to capture is a mysterious bobcat. And in order to do that, I want to use the last ray of light. So as the sun was setting, the light started to turn golden, and we were following the bobcat closer and closer. But then the bobcat was trying to walk away from the sun, so we cannot get a good picture. So I still remember. So at that time, the snow was about 3 feet high, and the bobcat was walking very fast to this side, and the sun was shining on this side. So in order to get a good picture, the bobcat had to turn his face to this side, right? But you cannot ask the bobcat to turn his face. But then the sun is already setting slower and slower, and the bobcat was walking further and further away. And I tried to maintain the same distance from the bobcat, but the bobcat was walking really fast. So I was wearing my snow boots, and I was running along the snow with my camera and my tripod along the way. And at that time, the snow was a very crunchy snow. I don't know if you guys have walked in the crunchy snow before. What it means is that if you are very slim, you are okay, but I'm not okay. Not because I'm too fat, but I'm just carrying all this heavy equipment. So what had happened is that if you walk on the snow, there is a very hard surface there. But as you walk, within 1 second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds, it will crack open, and then you will drop 3 feet down. And then when you try to raise your feet, you get stuck. And then you try to raise your head into another step, and then you got stuck again, and then you raise your foot and then get into another step. And sometimes you can walk above the snow, but then sometimes you will crack again too. So it's almost like a gamble as you run away. So I was running away using all my strength to catch up with the bobcat. And at one moment, when I get my feet out from the snow, my snow boot was stuck in the snow. And I said, should I put my feet back into the snow, or should I miss the shot? And this is the moment when you really show your character. So at the end of the whole trip, I said, forget about the snow boot. So at the end, I was running on the snow with only my sock on. And I finally got this picture. And so this is the picture when the bobcat finally turned his face towards the sun. And as you can see, I love this kind of picture because it not only shows the close-up of a bobcat, but it also shows the habitat. They are very skittish. They sometimes hide behind this sagebrush, and you can see the snow. And I love how the way the golden color complement with the snow that looks blue. So And this is another shot when the last ray of the sunlight was shining on the bobcat, and the bobcat was looking at the sun, and it is just majestic. So, there is a lot of things about chasing an animal, but I also learned something very valuable in the wilderness. And over this last 20 years, when I was alone in the US, I learned that there are 3 most important things in life, really. And I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I hope to share with you. So the first thing is that you should look for something to do that you feel it is meaningful. And then the second thing is that you want to do something that truly makes you happy. And then the third thing is that you got to spend more time with your loved ones. And as long as you can fulfill these 3 things, then everything would just align. And just don't forget about this perspective. And I got the number 3 reason to spend time with your loved ones because of a special encounter in Yellowstone a few years ago. So I went to Yellowstone one year, and as I told you, there are a lot of bison in Yellowstone. So as a photographer, we want to look for wolves, we want to look for fox, we want to look for bobcats, we want to look for owls. Who cares about bison, right? So as we were driving around Lamar Valley, which was minus 20 degrees that day, we saw this is a bison mother and the baby there. So our driver quickly braked, and I said, keep going. We don't want to stop. Time is running out. There's only 1 day left in Yellowstone. We want to look for something interesting. And he said, there is something abnormal in this picture, because for bison, especially a mother and the baby, they would never stay alone in the wilderness. The male, they are much bigger, they are okay to stay alone in the wilderness, but for mother and baby, they never do that. So there must be something wrong. So I said, okay, if there's something wrong, I want to photograph it. So I immediately ventured into the snow, and then it was a 2 feet deep snow, and then we walked there, and then as we get closer and closer, we saw something very interesting. I've never seen something like that. So what we saw is that the mother bison kept on drilling the horn below the chin of this baby. And he just kept doing it. And then the baby was not responding to her at all. And then he would change the location. He would try to do it again using... So one thing I want to remind you first is for humans, we have 2 hands, right? So if the baby fell down, what you do? You use the hand, you hold it up. But for animals, they don't have this kind of hands. So all she can do is, it looks like she was trying to use the horn to help the baby stand up. So we keep photographing it, and we didn't understand what is going on, as he just used, so he tried to went on the left of the bison baby and lift it up and failed, and then went to the other side. And we saw this mother bison did this hundreds of times for 3 hours nonstop. And then one guy who was driving on the road waved at us and said, hey, and then I went to him and I said, what's up? And then he said, is this the bison mother and the baby? And I said, yeah, what is going on? And he said, well, 3 days ago, this is a big herd of bison. There were hundreds of them. But then there was one baby that was attacked by a wolf. And the baby was badly injured. And after a little bit of time, the bison herd, because there are hundreds of bisons, and in the snow, there is not a lot of nutrients. So the bison, in order to survive, they have to move to a new place. So these hundreds of bison have to go, otherwise they will starve to death. So they all left, but the mother stayed. So this mother, in these last 3 days, without food and without protection of the big herd, he was just trying to lift the baby up. And as you see that, we saw the bison mother trying to lift the baby up for a few hours, and then she finally gave up, and then she walked away for about 100 feet, and then he turned back to look at the baby, and then he would walk back to the baby again, and then she started to lift the baby up again and again. And then during the whole time, there were lots of coyotes about a few 100 feet away looking at that, because they knew that the bison baby is gonna die and they have a big meal. And every time these coyotes tried to walk close to the baby, the mother would just stand up and then rush to them and said, nobody is gonna touch my baby. And as we saw that, this mother did this for many, many times. And every time the coyotes would finally give up and the mother bison would run back and then try to lift the baby. So after a few hours, this mother finally used his last strength to drill really deep into the snow, and then he tried to raise the baby up this time, and this time it was much higher than before. So she was able to lift the baby really, really high up, and I was cheering for them. I hope that this is gonna work, this is gonna happen. And just at the last moment, you see that the baby's chin just left the grip, and then he just fell back, and then his tongue was coming out, and it looks like his hair was dangling in the air, and then he dropped, splashed onto the ground. And once the baby dropped to the ground, we saw something, it was very unexpected. The mother bison, just like any American bison when they were mad, she was jumping up and down, she was shaking her head, bobbling her head, and then we saw saliva coming out from her mouth, and she was deeply depressed. So as we saw that the coyote finally walked close to the bison baby, the mother bison actually walked close to us. And if you photograph wild animals for a long time, you know that wild animals never approach human. So this mother bison just walked closer and closer to us, and if you look in her eyes, and you see the sadness in it. And you see that the saliva was still dripping down from her mouth. And if you look at the horn on her right, you see the hair of the babies there. So finally, the mother bison walked away from us, and then he just looked back at the baby, and the baby never made it. But then I just thought about that, and I thought any mother in this case will not leave their baby. And I think that a lot of the people think that in nature, it is always circle of life. You just try to, these animals just look for food and then they just try to survive. But if you realize it, that these animals actually have feeling. They wouldn't give up their babies. And that gives me a lot of meaning in life. I mean, you cannot change death or life, but when you see that this kind of love existed even in the wilderness, then it gives you really big hope. But life is not about only life and death. So one year I went to the 14,000 feet Mount Evans in Colorado, and trying to look for mountain goats. And it was really high up in the altitude, and I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. So I was running around trying to look for the mountain goats, and within a few minutes, my legs were shaking. And I don't know if you guys have been waken up from a nightmare in the middle of the night, and you feel that your heart was beating really fast, and my heart was beating that same way, and I thought I was gonna have a heart attack. And I said, oh God, I can't handle it. I have to take a break. So I find a rock before I can find any mountain goats. I saw that, oh, this rock seems to be nice. Maybe I'll just lean on it and take a break. And I take a break and I close my eyes and I breathe, and then when I open my eyes, I saw the mountain goats coming to me. So sometimes if you don't look for the animals, they will actually look for you. So this newly born mountain goat kid checked me out for a while, and then he decided to ask his big brother to also check on me. And then they went back to the mother, and then they started to play. So this is another interesting story. And so I also, if you have watched Harry Potter, you would know that you all know about what is snowy owl, right? So one year I went to a place near Seattle to look for them. And the main reason is that the snowy owl actually live in the high Arctic. But every few years, they will lose their food source because they have all consumed all the food in the Arctic, and they will fly down south to look for food. And when they do that, there is a chance to photograph them so you don't need to get all the way to the Arctic to see them. So what I heard from people is that there is a snowy owl in this place, in the tip, but that was about 5 miles from the parking lot, and it was on a beach. So what I wanted to convey is a picture of a snowy owl in low light in the mysterious morning. So I started to walk at 4 a.m. to this place, and the wind was blowing like crazy. It's 60 miles of wind, and I was walking in the darkness, and quickly I finished all my water, and I was dehydrated. And then when I was walking in the darkness, at one point, suddenly I did a free fall of 4 feet down because I was walking on something called driftwood. So if you walk on the beach, sometimes there is some wooden area, you should never walk on those because those woods are all dead trees that are being driven onto the land from the other places, and they are all dead. And when you walk on them, they will decompose, and you actually drop a few feet, and it will be really dangerous. So finally, I got to the place where the snowy owl was there, and the light was slowly getting brighter and brighter. And I know that once the light come out, I would not get a mysterious-looking snowy owl. So I got to act fast. And finally, I find one, and then I get close to the snowy owl, and then I got this picture. And this is a picture that I used a very slow shutter speed, 60th of a second. And at that time, you can see that the pupil was really big, and I capture a sense of mysterious feeling snowy owl. So they were just like stuffed animal there. So this is them when they were flying, and they sometimes love to be fluffy. Yeah. So now is also another story time. So one thing that I learned from wildlife photography is that you can always ask people for help. So about 10 years ago, I still remember I read a book by the famous photographer Moose Peterson. And he is a well-known wildlife photographer. And in it, there is a picture of a species called the San Joaquin kit fox. And the picture was taken in really low light, and he said that, well, this kind of species of fox only come out at night. And so the only chance you can see them is to wait for them in the evening, and you won't have enough light. But I really want to see them. And so I did a lot of Google search. And finally, I find a newspaper. And then I find out that there is a biologist who did a lot of research on them. So I talked to my friend, and I said, we should email that biologist to ask the information. Maybe he will tell us. And my friend said that you're crazy. When they are highly endangered, why would the biologist tell you, right? So but I still send the email to this biologist. I said that, hey, Brian, his name is Brian. I said, I saw your newspaper report saying that you are the people who do the research on this San Joaquin kit fox. About 10 years ago, I read the book by Moose Peterson, and he said that he can photograph them. Can you show me some tips? And he said, well, 10 years ago, I was the guy who showed Moose Peterson where the fox were. Why don't you come up and I'll show you? So we went up there, and then these San Joaquin kit fox are very elusive. They are only showing up at night. So we waited for actually quite a few months because we missed the golden timing, the first time we went. So we waited for a whole year next to the den, and every weekend we would go and check on that. And finally, we saw the San Joaquin kit fox coming out. So this is the smallest fox species in North America. And they were very tiny. They were just like the size of a squirrel. And as we photograph, we keep on developing. We try to learn about their behavior and photograph them more and more. And you can see that they started to play around. So this is a shot when the baby tried to catch a leaf and bring it back to the den. And when he saw me, he suddenly got scared and then looked at me a little bit and walked out. And this is just like any little kid when they were scared and find out that they did bad things, they will have this kind of expression. So we got a lot of pictures of that, and this is the three of them coming out from the den, and then they would play around. Sometimes they would bite their sibling, and then the mother was looking at them. Sometimes they would walk around, and they would bite their tail. And as we kept on photographing them, they started to grow up. And as you can see, they become much bigger, right? And then that's the time when they started to, instead of drinking milk, they started to eat solid food. And then sometimes the father, San Joaquin kit fox, will bring back a squirrel to them. And then you can see that they are following the father. So by going out into the wilderness to photograph the fox, you actually learn about their behavior. And as you learn about their behavior, you can tell people about their life and all, and you can actually bring a lot of awareness about how to protect them in the wilderness. And I think this is much more meaningful than what I originally envisioned. So we talk about why it is worth it to photograph them and how to do research on them and how we just keep trying and because the opportunity never comes up. So, finally, I want to end this with a story about my search for the powerful bear. So I was very fortunate to have a very caring parents who was here today, and they brought me to the wilderness when I was young. So I always go to the zoology and botanical garden in Hong Kong every weekend, and they would bring me to the ocean park where I saw a lot of animals. And they would also bring me to bookstores a lot. And one time they brought me to the bookstore and I picked a book and asked them to buy it for me. And the book's name is Monarch, the Big Bear of Tarlac, written by Ernest Seton. And that is a book about a bear. And the story was so touching that after I read it, I was crying. And I would force my parents to listen to the story about the book. And I asked them, hey, Mom and Dad, why don't you sit here? I want to tell you a touching story. And I would tell them the whole story, and they would not cry. And I was mad. And I said, how can you not cry with this story? Maybe I should tell you again. And I tell them again of the same story, and they still didn't cry. And I guess eventually they cried because they were so bored by me. So in the story, there was a moment when the bear was really powerful. And all these years, I want to capture the moment when you can show the power of the bear. And how do you capture that? So if you capture the bear as their baby and cute, you cannot capture the power, right? So the only way to capture that is to find a bear that was hunting for salmon. So when the bear was trying to hunt for salmon, they had tunnel vision. They look at the salmon there, and then they are 600 pounds, 7 or 8 feet tall. And they can run faster than any world record 100-meter runner. So they can run about 45 feet per second. What it means is that if they are 100 feet away from you, safe distance, if you blink your eyes twice, they are right in front of you. So that is a very dangerous encounter. You have to be very careful to go to those places. So 1 year, I saved enough time. So this is another thing about time management too, because I have a full-time job, but I also want to photograph them. So I did a lot of research prior to the trip to maximize my opportunity. So I did the research and I realized that, okay, every year in the end of August, that's the time when all the bears will gather in a place near Katmai National Park in Alaska. And when you fly there into the park, going to this remote lodge, all the bears are going to show up around here to hunt for salmon, right? It's a good plan. It's going to happen. I'm going to capture my childhood dream, right? So I went there. And then the first day, when we were going out from the lodge, we drive this little boat along the river to look for the bears. And we looked around for 20 miles back and forth, back and forth. We didn't see a single bear. And then the second day, it started to rain. And then the third day, it was still raining. Then the fourth day, it was still raining. And then the fifth day, it was raining even harder. And in the evening, there was actually a moment when the rain and the wind was so strong that it blocked the chimney in our lodge. And all the smoke was coming back out inside the room. And I was breathing carbon the whole night. And I thought I was going to die. And then the next day when I talked, there was some black stuff coming out. It was so bad. So there was only 1 day left in the trip. And I thought, okay, this is going to be the worst trip of my life. And one of our photographer friends said that this is not the way. I think we have to accept the fate that all the bears had left the area. There's no more bear in this area. So what we have to do is to just give a few $100 each, and then we may have to rent a small plane and get out of the area and try to see if there's any other bear in the area. So we did. So we called up a airplane company, and then they sent a small plane up to us. And about 5 of us got onto the plane, and we started to take off. And the plane flew for about 100 miles, and finally we saw one bear. And we were like crazy, yeah, finally there's one bear, let's land there, and we want to capture that. So we landed there, and this is what you saw. So we flew with this flow plane, and then we saw a bear down in the creek. So we hiked down on this cliff, and then we were walking on the water. And as we walk into the water, both sides, we cannot see anything in front of us and all. And I still remember clearly that there was a corner. There was a corner that we didn't see anything, but we knew that the bear probably is behind this corner. So as we walk and we turned, we didn't see one bear, but we saw 30 bears. And so this is the one bear we saw earlier, and a lot of people told me that this bear is doing something, but I don't know what they are thinking about. So as we were there, we saw that there were 30 bears. And what surprised me is that each of those bears looked very different than any bears I have seen in my life. So this one bear, if you look at him, he has one of his ears was gone. And if you saw another bear, one of his ear was gone as well. And then if you look at his forearm, one of the fur, some part of the fur was peeled. And it looks like these bears were fighting nonstop, and they were all injured. They were all angry. And they just didn't look friendly at all. And I talked to my bear guy, and I said, I don't mind not taking any bear picture. Maybe we should just go, because this didn't look right at all. And they just gave me this fearful feeling that I have never felt before. But then, as you know, some of my friends were very crazy about that, and they said, we don't care. Let's just get down and take pictures. So I said, okay, whatever. I'm just going to take pictures. So we sat into the water, and just imagine, if you are in the water was glacier water, so it's almost 0 degrees. And you have to, the water was near up to my level here, and if you stay there for a few hours in ice cold water, it was crazy. And so we photographed these bears, so they would get out from the water, and then they were just like human, right? When you see that, they just stand out and then walk around. And they were all over us. And as I was photographing these bears, and then they would also shake in front of us, and it was just crazy. And I still remember one moment, because I was right here photographing them, and the bears, some of the bears were right here, some of the bear was on my right, some of the bears were on my left, but then there was some bear behind me too. So as I kept on photographing the bear in the front, I kept on looking at my back over my shoulder, because who knew, right? Maybe I can get a shot, but maybe my last shot, right? So I kept looking back, and I was looking back. And at that time, our bear guy, his name is Charlie, he had a gun, and he was patrolling back and forth very nervously. And he also saw my behavior, that I kept looking back. And he said, hey, Tin Man, it's going to be okay. I will make sure that you are safe, but in case I don't make it, tell my wife I love her. So it was that crazy. So while we were photographing them, so they catch fish too, and then they would fight in front of us. So the whole place was so loud. It was all roaring. Bears were fighting left and right, and it was just crazy. And then they were just doing this right in front of us. And then they would just pounce on salmon. And suddenly I realized that the bear would pounce for salmon. So what they do is that they will target on one salmon. They have tunnel vision. They don't care what is in front of them. They only see the salmon. And they would just run a few steps, and then they pounce. So after a few observations, I realized that if the bear is targeting on a salmon in front of me, then he will run towards me, and then he will pounce towards me. And if I can capture a picture like that, maybe he can get a very good power kind of way in it. So once I have that idea, I said, okay, let me try it. And then I was so scared that I got a picture that was completely blurry. And I kept on trying, and I said, oh, because I was already shaking. My whole body was already shaking at that time. It was so cold, and I was also scared too. So my friends were trying to pull me out of the water. He said, you cannot stay there, because if you die, we have to pay a lot of insurance, right? So they tried to make sure that I don't get hypothermia, but I said, just don't touch me. I want to capture the shot. So finally, after 4 hours in the ice cold water, I saw this bear. And he was looking at my direction, and I said, maybe this is the shot. And lo and behold, he started to run towards me. And he was about 100 feet away from me, and then he just run. And if you have used a camera before, at first it showed up in my viewfinder as a tiny dot, and when I click one button, he get like 2 times bigger, 3 times bigger, and then I couldn't even see anything. I was just just clicking, and finally it did that. And this is the picture that is right in front of the moment when he pounced on the salmon. And what is special about this picture is that usually they will look down into the salmon, but for this moment, right before he pounced down, he actually looked up a little bit, and we have some eye contact on it. So he probably was thinking whether I am tastier than the salmon or what. So after I captured this shot, I looked into the viewfinder and at the LCD review, and I couldn't believe what it is, because you see both claw and you see the eyes. And I talked to my friend, and he told me that maybe you should submit it to a contest called the Nature's Best Smithsonian. And I said, what is that? And he said, oh, this is a contest about conservation, and maybe more people can see your picture. So I did. And after a few months, I received a letter, and that I won the grand prize of this award from 25,000 entries. And I got to be invited to the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. And if you still remember that bear, it was the picture right in the entrance. They used that picture as the entrance picture, and they also display it in the museum, and I was able to also give a talk on that. And what touched me the most is that not only my picture can be seen by a lot of people, but every day there are people writing me emails saying that, for example, this email was written by a stranger from the Netherlands. And this lady told me that she and her 7-year son would look at wild animal pictures every day. But this particular morning, when they were looking at pictures randomly online, her son suddenly saw my picture of the 3 mountain goats jumping, and her son started to cry. And she wanted to tell me how special it was and asked me whether she can purchase a print. And by seeing all these kind of emails and messages, I just feel that, originally I just used this as a hobby. It just makes me happy. And I had never thought about any recognition, any award, or I never strived to try to make any money from it. But there are so many people asking me whether they can buy a print, whether they can, and the awards keep on coming. I want you to really think about it. And then if you can pay attention to look into these animals in this exhibit and look into their eyes and try to understand their struggle, try to see their curiosity, their fear, and try to understand the harsh environment they have to handle in order to survive, especially when the new wilderness are disappearing. This is something that I hope my photos can bring this kind of awareness to you, so that you started to care about them. And if for me, as a student who grew up in Hong Kong, who also studied all the classes, 8 subjects, 9 subjects, 10 subjects, and then I started to pick a school, and then I went alone to the United States without knowing anything, pick a major that I had no clue about, and finally I started to find something that I truly love, also both in my hobby and also in my career, which is medical imaging. Then I think anything can happen, and all you need is just to be courageous, to ask yourself what you really want, and what you care about, and what makes you truly happy. And this is the message that I want to tell you about, and I hope you can get something meaningful from today's talk and really ask yourself what makes you happy and go out for that. Thank you very much.
Dr. Lee, thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. Now we would like to open up the stage for 1 or 2 questions. You can ask the questions either in English or Cantonese. I'm sure Dr. Lee would be welcome to answer any of your questions.
以後係問答環節，李博士十分歡迎大家踴躍嘅發問嘅，咁唔知有冇人想問問題？
多謝李博士個 talk 好精彩嘅，咁咧就我好有興趣咧，因為Dr. Lee 你都係 focus on 嗰啲陸地嘅動物嘅，咁你有冇興趣會將來影啲海裡面嘅動物啊？鯊魚啊、鯨魚啊嗰啲。
係絕對會嘅。 咁我其實一路都好嚮往可以見到鯨魚，例如抹香鯨啊，即係大家都睇過Moby Dick 呢本書就知道，即係我覺得喺海底嘅生物亦都有好多特別之處，亦都我聽人講過，如果你去到海底嘅時候，可以感受得到嗰個寧靜嘅氣氛，同埋因為你喺海底入邊就唔同喺陸地，因為你每一次嘅呼吸啊，同埋各方面好多嘢都唔可以都唔可以有誤差，如果唔係都會死嘅，所以嗰樣嘢要好小心咁樣。咁我估我可能需要再精通游水，跟住再慢慢嚟先至可以一步一步咁樣嚟啦。但係暫時嚟講，我都係注重於陸上嘅動物先啦。
即係你都係中意嗰啲啊，係嘛？
係啊。
高山或者係。
但係如果有人可以教到我潛水，我都會好想去。
唔使嘅，其實影鯨魚係喺隻船度影嘅啫。
哦，係咩？
一影佢跳上嚟嗰啲。
哦 ，yeah， 其實
或者喺飛機度影落去。
Yeah， 其實我上年都有諗過去影跳起嘅鯨魚嘅，但係最後我都係揀咗紅人。但係我好希望都有一次，因為我覺得鯨魚跳上嚟呢一個動作差唔多係喺動物世界入邊或者差唔多係一個最奇妙嘅一個 behaviour 嚟㗎啦。Thank you.
Can we give another round of applause for Dr. Lee?
多謝李博士撥冗嚟臨分享。
Dr. Lee, as a token of our appreciation, we would like to invite Mrs. Diana Chen, the University Librarian, to present you a souvenir.
Oh, thank you.
為咗感謝李博士嘅到嚟咧，我哋準備一份紀念品咧，係由圖書館館長陳館長致送。
Thank you, Ms. Chen and Dr. Lee.
多謝李博士及陳館長。
We have now come to the end of tonight's session. We only have a few short announcements to make. The first is that Dr. Lee's first solo exhibition is now held at the HKUST Library until the 17th of February 2016. Please do visit if you find the time. The second is that HKUST has published an exhibition catalog for Dr. Lee in commemoration of HKUST's 25th anniversary. This is available for sale outside the lecture theatre. Please check it out if you have the time.
再次多謝李博士嘅感人嘅分享啦。咁我哋李博士嘅作品展咧會喺科技大學嘅圖書館咧係擺放嘅。咁個時間係由今日開始一直至10月17號。而另外我哋適逢科技大學25週年校慶，科技大學亦推出咗一本李博士嘅作品集，歡迎大家稍如玉步去到展覽廳外邊選購。咁李博士好樂意為大家簽名留念嘅。
We hope you all enjoyed the talk tonight. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Lee, for sharing with us. Thank you all and good night.
再次感謝大家嘅來臨。